Welcome to the Church Solutions Podcast, brought to you by JSL Solutions. The Church Solutions Podcast is designed to help equip you and your church in the use of technology and other tools and services. And now, here are your hosts, Steve Lacey and Phil Thompson.
Hello and welcome to the Church Solutions Podcast.
Hi, I'm Steve Lacey.
And my name is Phil Thompson. Thank you for being with us today on another podcast edition. This is episode number, I think it's 14 or 15. We lost track. But we want to welcome you, and we want to encourage you, wherever it is you're listening to this, if you get around to it, go over to iTunes and check us out on iTunes. You can subscribe to this podcast. It's Church Solutions Podcast, and give us a review and give us a rating. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, sounds like, dude, please do.
So, Steve, what are we going to talk about today?
Today, we're going to be talking about increasing your giving.
Increasing your giving for your church, for your ministry, for your nonprofit organization. Now, let me just say this, and I kind of give this little spiel every time, but we're probably one of the few tech companies out there that we're targeting churches. We work with ministries, and the reason we do that is because we are ourselves involved in churches and ministries. We have a heart for churches, and so we are tech related. We do streaming video, we do mobile apps, we do interactive websites, church management tools. So you might be saying, well, what qualifies you guys to talk about how to increase the giving at your church? Why are we doing this, Steve?
Well, we, as you mentioned, we have some experiences. We've served in leadership, and we've made some mistakes, and we've had some successes. So we're just going to share from our heart what some principles that have worked for us, and just sharing them with our church audience.
Well, and you've been for many, many years involved in leadership, especially financial boards of your church. I've been an executive pastor off and on for years, as well as a senior pastor. And so we do have really a lot of experience, and especially when it comes to money. Money is as I don't have to tell anybody listening that it's a sensitive area. But it's something that's necessary for churches, because every church I talk to, we're always trying to do something a little bit more. We're trying to, get to the next level in our ministry. We're trying to help more people, do more things, and that does require money.
Right, exactly.
And so there are some really helpful things here we can use, some tips we're going to share today about how you can maybe, especially as we head into the fall season here, maybe you can get things off to a good start, increasing the giving at your church.
Summer's typically a slump for giving, as families go on vacation, and our attendance may drop, and so your giving will often drop off in the summer. So we're heading out of that and getting into the beginning of the fall season, and so we've got some ideas and some just some fun facts about giving. And
we've used these before, and they do work. So what's the first little tidbit we want to pass on here?
So the first one we have on our list is people give when they trust the leadership.
People give when they trust the leadership. So study after study has proven that when it comes to giving, people give to what they believe in.
Right.
It's really what it is. In fact, I'll say this probably several times. People aren't really motivated to give to a need. They're giving to vision. They're giving to something they really believe and they have passion for.
Right. And one of the things that's interesting is that as you get a new member, one of the last things to come with that new member is giving. And as you're getting ready to lose a member, the first thing to go is their giving. So, you can really tell what people are thinking, and the whole giving level is really a kind of a spiritual measure of the spiritual maturity of your church.
Right.
So if you're struggling in this area, a lot of these things we talk about, some of them are very practical, kind of tactical things, but the end goal is to kind of raise the spiritual maturity level of your congregation, and just one of the natural acts of that will be an increased set of giving.
Yeah, and so when we talk about leadership here, and you hit it right on. I mean, money's the last to come and the first to go. But one of the things when it comes to leadership, there's got to be. So if you're a senior pastor listening, or one of the pastors, or even somebody that's involved, maybe as a volunteer, but you're under your leadership team, it's real important to connect with your people and to build trust. And as you build trust, people will begin to buy into the vision and the purpose of the church. We're going to talk about vision in a moment. But really, a lot of pastors have a problem with this, but as the lead pastor, you need not to be afraid to ask people to give. If you're hesitant to do that, they're going to. And again, I know there's abuse, and we can go on and on about this, and everybody knows there's been abuse in giving, and we don't have to belabor that point. But as you're leading your church, as your leaders are leading, it's nothing wrong with asking people to give.
Right. There's one of the things that correlates with this trust is, I listened to some other podcast, and they talk about the sales process. And the very first component of a sales process is establishing trust. Because people aren't going to buy from you unless they trust you. Mm-hmm. And people aren't going to give to your ministry unless they trust you. So it's the very first thing that you need to establish. And so, and the leadership of the church has to establish that trust.
And so, a lot of these things we're going to talk about here, I mean, they are going to take a little bit of effort in some instances. It's one thing just to put a blurb in the bulletin and say, whatever, but to really cultivate a culture of giving in your church, you're going to have to put a little bit of effort into some of these things. And building relationships and building trust is something that has to happen.
So if that trust is broken, then your contributions will definitely reflect that.
And that happens. We've seen that in lots of cases. So the second thing.
So the second thing has to do with vision. So when people give to a vision that they have caught or they bought into, and they don't typically, as you mentioned earlier, give when there's a need. So there's people are motivated by the vision, the bigger picture, where we're going to be and how I can help get us there.
Yeah. A little side note, we've got all sorts of colleges in America today and universities, and the ones that seem to do the best when it comes to receiving large endowments are these Ivy League schools, and they're the ones that you might think don't need the money. But people give to them because there's a vision. They're very good at putting their purpose out, their vision out of training young people. And that's one of the reasons why they have success when it comes to raising money. So people need to have a vision. They need to see the vision. They need to see the passion in the other leaders.
Right.
And they need to see how that works out.
And that will be contagious with them, and they can catch the passion and act on it through giving.
Yeah, absolutely. The third thing that we want to point out here is hopefully we can help you with your churches increase your giving. The third thing is people give to experience just the pleasure, the joy of generosity. I mean, it's a nice feeling, and it's a good feeling, and it's a biblical feeling.
Right. It's much better to give than to receive, something along those lines.
Well, it really is, and I mean, it's the generosity. We talk about character, a lot. Hopefully we do, and hopefully churches do. And part of character is we want to. God is a giving God, and so as we give, we experience character development, and we also, there's something exciting about giving to something.
All right. There's nothing, I don't think, any more rewarding than being able to give and help someone out or help an organization out and see that, the fruit of your generosity.
Right. And again, we're not talking about, one of the things we're not going to talk about today is guilt, manipulation. I mean, there's too much of that going on around today. And guilt manipulation might work for some people. It might work on some people, but it's not going to give you the overall benefit.
Right.
And it's just not a good thing to do anyhow. It's
going to be a temporary thing at best if you're able to guilt someone, because they'll walk away from it. Oh my gosh, I feel terrible about it. I felt terrible, so I gave, and now I don't.
Right. It's just guilt is a gift that keeps on giving, but it's going to have a negative effect on your people and you and your church, and in the long run, it just kills what you're trying to do.
Right.
So you got to go the opposite direction with that. And when people experience, and testimonials are really good for this stuff. I don't know if I've got it in these notes here somewhere, but when people are inspired to give, if you can grab some testimonials, some legitimate things, not for manipulation purposes, but to say, hey, my life was changed because I saw this need and I started to give and I saw results. And those kind of testimonials can be very helpful to other people to see there really is a valid thing when it comes to giving.
Right.
Generosity is a positive thing. So speaking of inspiration, again, testimonials are important. If you can, grab some people that would be willing to share how giving has helped their life. Again, we're not into. We have lots of different ideas out there on giving, but the overall purpose of it is not selfish, but to help others and to inspire others. And so people give when they're inspired,
right,
not when they're manipulated.
Right, and that kind of ties into the vision piece of it. Is they see the vision and then they feel inspired to participate in that.
Right.
So inspiration or being inspired is another key element that you're going to want to make sure that you contribute to.
And these things take some effort. Again, takes effort a lot on the leadership team part. Your pastor and other people involved in leadership, it takes some effort to begin to cultivate this stuff and begin to share it, in some cases from the pulpit and in other areas, small groups, other meetings that you might be having, those kind of things. So as we move on here, as we try to encourage you, Steve and I, our heart is to, help churches in every area. One of those is the area of giving. People give when they get involved. It's really when people, when you develop teams at your church for volunteers, we've talked about teams here in our other podcast, when people get connected, when they begin to help out, they begin to make friends, they keep coming to your services, they give financially, they leave their mobile phones on and their ringers go on. When people begin to make friends, that encourages people to give. I've worked with lots of people in different departments of a church, different ministry areas of a church, and they saw a need. Let's just we're a tech business, so let's talk about tech. We at my church, somebody saw the need for an additional projector. We actually needed 2 projectors for our services. Somebody on our tech team saw that need. We didn't have the budget for it, but they were involved. They got connected. They were already serving on the tech team. They said, you know what? I want to make a special gift to the church so that we can buy an additional projector for our services. That person did that. And again, they got involved. They got involved in the ministry. And because of that, they gave a special gift to help out in that area. So I want to encourage you to, you're going to have to work to develop maybe some teams, some volunteers. But if you put some effort in that stuff, you'll see not only satisfaction where you get some extra help in areas of ministry, but people will begin to give to that area of ministry. They like it. And we really, I don't have this on the list that Steve and I have compiled here, but people, not only should people give on a regular basis, some churches teach tithing. I think that's a good thing. But also there are other areas that people get excited about, and they may give to that area outside of their tithe. I was talking, about special gifts that people get when they get involved in different ministries.
Right.
They a lot of times will see a specific need in that area, in that department, and they'll decide to give.
Something that relates to them.
Right.
You're talking about.
Yeah.
So maybe send a kid to youth camp. Maybe they became a Christian through youth camp, and so there's a special bond that's created with different areas.
Right. So moving on to number 6 in our little notes here. We probably ought to publish these notes, Steve. I'll need to probably put that on the web.
Okay.
Number 6.
So people give when we ask them to give.
People give when we ask them to give. And again, we kind of touched on that earlier. I have a friend of mine. Well, actually, you know Jeff very well. He's your senior pastor, and I worked with Jeff for a long time. And Jeff said, it's interesting when I ask people to do me a favor, they become my friend. And again, it's not a manipulation thing per se. It's just that when you ask people to get involved and do something, more happens than just their service. And Jeff was always good to point out, if I want to make friends, sometimes all I have to do is ask them to help me move. and somebody says yes, and all of a sudden we begin to become friends. We connect, and we find out we have things in common, and friendship happens. And again, it's the same way when it comes to giving. We can't be shy to ask people, hey, you know what? We have a need in this area. Would you consider giving? Right. And I'm talking probably more general announcements. I'm not really necessarily talking about you confront somebody, although there may be somebody that God puts on your heart that maybe you need to talk to them about something. I mean, it's not necessarily wrong if you do it in the proper manner.
Right. And as we talked about earlier, I mean, giving is a spiritual discipline.
Yeah.
And so it may not be that we asking them to give because we have a need, but you want to ask people to give so that they can, it's kind of like saying, I'd like you to work out so that you can be healthier and happier and that sort of thing. So it kind of falls into that same kind of deal. You want to ask people to give so they can experience the joy of being generous and the joy of being obedient, and that as we haven't talked about a lot here, but there's God's going to overwhelm your cup will overflow if you have the right heart and give cheerfully.
And that brings up another point here, and that is if you want your church to be a giving church, if you want to increase giving in your church, if you want to increase the donations in your organization, one of the things I have found that's very necessary is we really do need, as leaders, we need to teach the principles of stewardship, the principles of management. In fact, Dave Ramsey is a good example.
Oh, he's a good example. And what you're talking about there is a lot of people take on this attitude of, well, that's my money. I've earned that money, and so therefore it's mine, and I'm not just going to give it away. But in reality, you're just a steward of the money that God has provided for you. You're just the manager of that money. So you need to kind of take an attitude of, how do I best manage that money? And giving is a part of that. God commands us to give the tithe, to take a 10% of what is given, and that's just a spiritual discipline. It's a sign of a mature manager, and so.
And I use Dave Ramsey as an example, but there's other ones that teach it out there too, and that would be the point where we also need to help people learn how to manage their money. And so, and that's one of the things I know Jeff has talked about at Alive, and I've talked about it at different churches I've been at, is, okay, we want people to give for lots of positive reasons, but also, if they don't manage their wallet, if they're not taking care of their checkbook, they're not going to be able to give anyhow.
Right.
And if they do give, then there's all sorts of things are way out of balance. So people need to get a grip on their credit cards. They need to get a grip on spending their money.
As Dave Ramsey also talks about, it's you're to take the first fruits and give those to the church, and so there's never you don't give out of your excess. You give out of your what has been, and so those are the things you need to teach your congregation, and so that you can kind of raise their spiritual maturity to understand what the whole giving thing's about.
Yeah. So moving on here as we continue to talk about how to help your church prosper, I guess is a word that we could use to help them increase in what they're doing. This kind of goes along with the next point, and that is we've got to remove barriers for people to give. We've got to make it easier for people to give.
Right.
There's lots of different ways to do that, but if you're making people jump through hoops, it's just you're going to restrict people's giving.
Right. So one of the tactical things that they're doing at our church, they started doing that made a big difference, was they provided self-addressed, postage-paid envelopes that go with the bulletin that's handed out each week, so that people are like, oh, I forgot my check, but they take this envelope home with them, and it's just really easy to take that check, drop it in the envelope. The postage is already paid, and it's sent off. That's one avenue. Yeah. The other one that is provide a prominent location on your website so that you can accept donations online. So there's several ways to do
before
this.
we go online, and online obviously is important, and I want to talk about that in a moment, but the other thing too is let's get real practical here, okay? And as a pastor, I've found that this really helps, okay? So depending on what your church does, and some churches receive an offering, at the end of the service, some of them at the beginning, some of them in the middle, but whatever you're going to do, and this is something we used to call, as a staff, we used to say we need to give people what we call the 2-minute warning. So if you're in leadership here and you're involved in your church in some leadership capacity, when you're going to receive the offering, give people a moment or two to be able to write their checks out, to be able to, pull their wallets out, to be able to get ready to give.
Right.
So we called it the 2-minute warning. And so what we would do, and we do this at my church. I know we do it at where you're at because I was on staff there, and that is, we may make a few announcements, but when we get up to make the announcements in the offering, we'll say, in just a moment, we're going to receive an offering. And depending on how you guys do it or how whatever church does it, we actually encourage new people not to give until, they feel comfortable in giving. We say that it's a responsibility of the people who are, who love the church and who are involved in church. But so we give people an opportunity, okay, we're going to give, and then for maybe a minute or maybe 2 minutes, I don't know, we will talk about something else or something related, and it gives people an opportunity, quite frankly, to write a check or to pull that out and to get ready.
It's a simple, nonsensical thing you can do.
Yeah. But you'd be surprised how a lot of times, okay, we're gonna do the offering, and boom, the plate's being passed, and some people aren't ready.
Right.
And I still have people, believe it or not, even when my church, what we do, we go through that little process. And again, we don't tell people, hey, it's a 2-minute warning. I don't think I do that. Maybe I've said that before, but I've still had people come back to me later and go, oh, here's where do I put my check? And so some people aren't really ready to give for whatever reason. So you want to create an opportunity and give them a little bit of time somehow to do that, whether it's making a few announcements, whatever it is. And let me add something else to this too. And this is not for everybody, but it's something you might want to consider doing. And that is maybe having a couple places in your room, in your facility, in your auditorium, in your worship center, whatever you call it, your sanctuary, maybe have a box or two somewhere on the wall where people on their way out can also give.
Right.
We do that. Does Alive still do that?
Yeah, we have one actually right by the door as you walk out of the building.
So if you miss the offering, you give people an opportunity. Okay, I've missed it, but I can still. And my church, we don't only ask people to give a check, but we also ask people to fill out their connection card and fill that in. I think Alive does that too.
Right, you can put both in the boxes.
And by the way, while we have time here, we got a couple minutes here. It might be good if you don't have a connection card or some kind of a sheet where you can, get people's email, get people's prayer requests, those kind of things. You might want to create one of those and then give people an opportunity to drop that in with their offering. It also makes newer people feel a little more comfortable. If you're newer and you're not giving, and the plate comes around, you can drop your connection sheet in, your connection card in.
Right.
But again, I want to emphasize, consider having another place to give in your church somewhere. We've got a lock on it, so it's not like people are throwing their money in there and then it's just open to anybody who can take it. Not that anybody in a church would steal anything, but we actually have it secure so that the ushers or the head, whatever the head person can get in there and get to it with a key. But consider doing that, and it will increase your giving.
Right.
So another thing. Okay. So Steve, you started to touch on online giving. Elaborate a little bit more about online giving.
Well, people are moving online, and
just a few people.
Just a few people, and a lot of people are moving their commerce online. So they're really used to. I know at our household, Amazon and the brown truck that comes around has become a real friend of ours, and so people are really used to giving online. So
you meant the Brown truck? So you guys are ordering stuff on Amazon or online somewhere?
Yes, and then
it's coming.
And then it gets delivered.
I bought cereal online.
Oh yeah,
I do. I've bought cereal online.
We haven't done that yet, but we're buying stuff online. I bought socks online this morning because I realized.
Did they fit?
No, I haven't. They haven't come yet. They'll be here tomorrow, I think. Okay, but the fact is, people are comfortable with giving online, so you need to create that avenue. You've got some stats here. You've got
a lot of them here.
A lot of stats. The total number of internet users in the world is approaching 2 billion.
Yeah, that's amazing.
People, internet users. Number of internet users in North America, 266 million.
Yeah, this is, I think, a couple years old. This is from Barna. This is from the Barna Research Group, and they're pretty good.
Yeah,
North American population online, 77%.
Yeah, and it is just going nowhere but up from there. So people are accustomed to giving online.
They're already online.
Yes, they're already online. They're already doing shopping online. So creating an avenue to be able to contribute online, or even possibly set up an automatic recurring thing, so they don't have to think about it.
So automatic. So you're talking about electronic.
Electronic funds transfer kind of thing, where you can go in and say, well, you can offer them the ability to contribute once, or you can set it up so that, I'm going to be coming to this church for a while. I'm going to give every week, and it can just go on autopilot for them.
Yeah, we have people at my church that do have automatic. They work through PayPal, and they have automatic monthly giving through PayPal. And that's probably we'll get to that next question here in a moment, because I know somebody's asking, well, what resources can I use? What companies can I use for online? Let's get to that in just a moment. But let me also say this. My church, we set my church up with a mobile app a while back. And on that mobile app is the ability of lots of different features. It's actually from our company, Church App Live. So I'm shamelessly plugging us again, churchapplive.com. But one of those features is donating online through the app. And we started to get a huge increase. I mean, I say huge. It was over $1,000 a month, which is nothing to sneer at.
Yeah, that is.
But people start giving online when they weren't giving anywhere else before that.
Huh.
So what I'm saying? So again, giving online can increase your donations, and through a mobile app or through your website, and that probably we're about out of time, but that probably brings us to the next deal, and that is, what should I use to give online? And we just mentioned PayPal. There's lots of different companies out there.
Dozens, if not dozens of companies that are geared that work with the churches. And different people have their favorites, and I'm not thinking of any ones that jump right out at me, but if you just Google...
just go to the Book of Wisdom and Knowledge, Google,
yes, and search for Church Online Giving System, and you'll get lots of results. Yeah. And they'll all integrate in with your website, and so it's just a matter of, they're all going to charge a certain fee, a small fee for the contributions, but as merchants have found that accept credit cards, it's worth the expense.
It is.
So
I can tell you that from an executive pastor perspective, it's worth it. It really is. You will increase your giving if you create avenues for people, and one of those is online. And you may have to pay a little portion of it, but shop around, because there's some differences, and you can get yourself a good deal. So. All right, so we're out of time. So, folks, if we can help you in anything, we're a tech company, JSL Solutions, but we do streaming video, we do mobile apps, we do websites, and we also do church consultations and consulting. So, because we're involved in church work is our heart. So, if we can help you in any way, support at streamingchurch.tv. That's support at streamingchurch.tv. I'm Phil Thompson.
Hi, and I'm Steve Lacey.
You have yourself a great day. We will catch you next time on another edition of Church Solutions Podcast.